I've been testing a lot of AI video tools lately, but there's one problem I keep running into. You can get an incredible looking shot, and then you try to make the next shot match it. Suddenly the character looks different. The environment changes. The camera does something completely unexpected. And if you want to fix one small thing, you end up generating the entire thing again. So today, I wanted to try something different. I'm going to create a short cinematic sequence using Seedance 2.5 inside Morphic, and I'm going to see how much control I can actually get over the process. Not just generating one impressive clip. I want to see if I can actually build something. And by the end, I'll show you exactly what I created.
Welcome back to Nextcope AI, your shortcut to the smartest tool on the market.
Today, we're taking a look at Morphic, an AI storytelling studio that brings image, video, and audio creation together in one workspace. And the reason I wanted to test it today is pretty simple. Seedance 2.5 is now available on Morphic, and this new model brings some interesting capabilities to AI video. We're talking about 30-second single clips, support for up to 50 reference assets in one generation, audio references, more precise video editing, video extension, and native generation in more than 10 languages. But honestly, I'm less interested in reading through a list of features. I want to actually use them. So I'm going to create a short cinematic story from scratch, and I'm going to use references, audio, generation, and editing to see how much of the process I can keep inside Morphic. Let's start with the idea. For this experiment, I don't want to make another generic futuristic city with neon lights everywhere. Instead, I want something that feels more like an actual movie scene. My concept is, a woman receives a mysterious voice message from her future self, warning her not to leave the apartment before midnight. That gives us a little bit of mystery, a character, a location, and something we can build a story around. So I'll start inside Morphic and create the first scene. And one thing I like about the platform is that I don't have to download anything or move between different applications. The whole workflow happens directly in the browser. Now I'm going to use Seedance 2.5 for the generation, and this is where things get interesting. Instead of giving the model one image and hoping it understands what I want, I can work with multiple reference assets. Seedance 2.5 supports up to 50 reference assets in a single generation, including images, videos, and audio. So for this scene, I can give it a reference for the character, a reference for the environment, and other visual elements that help establish the style I'm looking for. The idea is basically, the more useful context I give the model, the more specific I can be about the result. And I think this is especially interesting for creators who already have their own visual identity. Maybe you have a character you want to keep consistent. Maybe you're working with a product. Maybe you already have footage or a specific visual style. Instead of describing everything from scratch every single time, you can bring those references directly into the generation. Now I want to try something slightly different. I'm going to add an audio reference. For example, I could use a voiceover or background music to help define the scene. Seedance 2.5 can use audio-only references, so the audio doesn't have to be treated as something you add at the very end. It can actually become part of the creative input. For my scene, I'm using the voice message as part of the story, so the visual direction is something like a woman alone in a dim apartment at night. Her phone suddenly lights up. She listens to a voice message from herself. The atmosphere becomes increasingly tense, and the camera slowly moves toward her as she realizes something is wrong. Now let's generate it. Okay, this is actually pretty interesting. The thing I'm looking at first isn't whether every single frame is perfect. I'm looking at whether the model understood the scene as a whole.
Don't leave
the
the
character,
apartment before
the
midnight.
environment, the camera movement, and the mood. And this is where Seedance 2.5 starts to feel useful for storytelling rather than just making isolated visual clips, because the goal isn't simply make something cinematic. I'm giving it a situation, references, and audio, and asking it to turn those ingredients into a continuous scene. And because the single clip generation can go up to 30 seconds, there's more room for an actual narrative arc inside one generation. Now let's say I like the scene, but there's one thing I want to change. Maybe I don't like the character's jacket, or maybe I want to change the background. Normally, this is where you might have to regenerate the entire shot and hope the rest stays consistent. But Seedance 2.5 also supports precise video editing. The idea is that I can change one element while keeping the rest of the shot intact. So I'm going to make a small change here. Let's change the outfit while keeping the camera movement and overall scene. And this is actually one of the features I'm most interested in. Because when you're creating something longer than a few seconds, control becomes much more important than simply getting a beautiful first generation. If I can keep the things that already work and only change what doesn't, the workflow becomes much more practical. Now, let's say this scene works, but I don't want the story to end here. I want to continue it. This is where video extension comes in. Instead of taking the finished clip into another application and trying to figure out how to continue it, I can extend the video directly. I can continue it forward, continue it backward, or use it to bridge between clips. So let's continue our story. The woman leaves the apartment, the camera follows her into the hallway, and the mysterious voice message starts making more sense. And now we're turning what started as one generated scene into an actual sequence. That's a pretty important difference, because when you're making AI video, the hardest part isn't always generating a cool shot. It's figuring out how to connect one shot to the next. And this is where Morphic itself becomes important, because Seedance 2.5 is the model, but Morphic is the workspace around it. Under the generations, there are quick actions that let me continue working with the result. I can make a video, change the style, upscale, change the aspect ratio, or add audio. So instead of generating something, downloading it, opening another application, making a change, exporting it and uploading it again, I can keep iterating from the same workspace. And for me, that's one of the biggest reasons to use a platform like this. It's not just about the model. It's about what happens after the model gives you the first result. Now I'm going to put the strongest parts of the story together. We have the opening scene, the mysterious voice message, the character leaving the apartment, and the continuation of the story. And I'm going to refine the sequence until it feels like one piece, rather than a collection of unrelated AI clips. This is also where the reference workflow becomes useful. When you're trying to build something with a consistent character, product, or visual style, you don't want every generation to feel like a completely new project. You want the assets to stay connected, and Morphic is designed around exactly that kind of reference-heavy workflow. You can attach images, clips, and audio directly to your prompt using references. So instead of constantly explaining what you're working with, the assets are right there in the creative workflow. There's another capability worth testing. Seedance 2.5 supports native generation in 10 plus languages. That means you can prompt in your own language and generate spoken video in languages including English, Spanish, Japanese, Arabic, and others with matching lip sync. So if you're creating content for different audiences, you don't necessarily have to rebuild the entire concept from scratch for every language. The same creative idea can potentially be adapted for different markets. For creators working internationally, that's a pretty interesting workflow. Alright, here's the final sequence. And honestly, this is the part that matters most, because a tool can have a huge list of features, but if the final result doesn't feel coherent, none of that really matters. What I wanted from this experiment was something that felt like an actual short scene, not just, here's a cool AI-generated shot. And I think the combination of references, audio, longer generation, precise editing and extension makes that workflow much more interesting. After actually putting Seedance 2.5 through a creative workflow, I think the biggest takeaway is this. The model is only half of the experience. Seedance 2.5 gives you the generation capabilities, but Morphic gives you a place to actually work with those generations. You can bring in your references, generate the scene, refine specific elements, extend the video, add audio, change the format, upscale the result, and continue building without constantly jumping between different tools. And the 30-second single clip capability is especially interesting for anyone trying to tell a story rather than just generate short visual experiments. Then you add support for up to 50 reference assets, audio references, video extension, precise editing, and multilingual generation, and you start getting a workflow that's much more useful for actual content production. Whether you're making short films, social content, product videos, music visuals, or just experimenting with AI filmmaking, I think this is the kind of workflow worth testing for yourself. Seedance 2.5 is now available on Morphic. If you want to try it yourself, I'll leave the link in the description. And if you enjoyed the experiment, let me know what you would create with Seedance 2.5.
Thanks for watching. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more smart AI tools. This is Nextcope AI. See you in the next one.